I came back to my porch and saw a posted notice taped to my fence. Karen from the HOA claiming my unauthorized repairs violated some rule she invented. She stood at my mailbox telling neighbors I'd be fined while waving a printed order she'd never had the authority to serve. So I pulled out my recorded deed and the enforcement manual she didn't know I once carried, then her smile froze as the truth hit. "Not today," I said. Finally, someone fought back. The morning ceremony ended with the board posting the stamped correction and handing me the plaque now fixed to my restored stake, its metal catching the lake's hard light. Standing before the updated map on the clubhouse board, I felt the crowd's release proof that public truth still matters when lines are pressed and mocked. Justice here wasn't dramatic. It was steady earned inch by inch, a reminder that deeds protect trust and communities can correct themselves when someone refuses to back down. Justice isn't loud. It's steady. If you've ever had a boundary-crossed share, what helped you reclaim it? The first thing I hear when I turn off the truck is bass thumping across the water. For a second, I think some teenagers got a Bluetooth speaker going down by the public ramp. Then I see the banner. Maple Cove HOA. Summer kickoff hangs between two white canopy poles, the letters snapping in the breeze over my sand. My sand. I follow the old path through the pines, boots crunching on needles, and step out onto the clearing that used to be nothing but quiet shoreline and a rusty fire ring. Now it looks like a rental brochure. White tents, folding tables with chafing dishes, a plastic cooler big enough to bathe a horse, kids running in and out of the shallows while someone yells about sunscreen. And all of it, every last chair and cooler and flip-flop sits squarely on the strip of beach my deed calls out by meets and bounds. A woman in a Navy HOA polo sees me first. She tilts her head, smile already fixed. "Can I help you find a wristband?" she asks. "I don't need a wristband," I say. "I own this lot." Her smile tightens just a fraction. "This is the HOA lakefront area, sir, the community beach." I let my eyes run the length of the sand. The old cedar stump I used as a seat is still there, half buried near the tree line. The stake that used to mark my corner is gone. "How long have you been doing this here?" I ask. She shrugs. "Years. HOA's hosted parties here forever. People love this spot. Years. I've been gone that long. Work divorce. The kind of slow drift that turns a lake place into a line item you promise you'll get back to someday." "Who's in charge?" I ask. She points her plastic tongs toward a man by the grill. "That's Carter, our president." Carter is mid-40s tan, wearing a golf shirt with the HOA logo and the kind of sunglasses you don't buy at a gas station. He's laughing at something a board member says when I walk up. "Afternoon," I say. He gives me a quick once-over work jeans, sun-faded ball cap, out-of-state plates still ticking hot in the gravel up top. "Hey there," he says. "You, with Lot 23, help yourself to a plate. Burgers are almost done." "I'm with Lot 17B, I tell him, the forgotten one at the end of the lane. "And this," I sweep a hand toward the tents and tables, "is my beach." His smile freezes on his face like I just told him the grill's out of propane. 17B, he repeats. "Right. So, here's the thing. That shoreline's been unused for a long time. Under our bylaws, unused shoreline defaults to community access. That's not how deeds work, I say." He laughs a little too loud for the joke. "Look, man, nobody's trying to step on toes. We just activated a dead space. It's better for everyone this way." I pull my phone from my pocket. The side button clicks as the camera opens. "Say that again," I tell him. His brows pull together. "Say what again?" "That unused shoreline defaults to community access. I'd like that on record." He glances at my phone. "Are you recording me?" "Now I am." I let the red circle roll. "Who authorized an HOA event on my lot?" He shifts his weight, still trying on that easygoing host act. "Look, if you just got back and you're confused about access, email the board. We'll get you the map." He turns toward the grill like the conversation's over. Tonight's event is scheduled. Folks are already here. Kids shriek as someone pushes them off a float. A Bluetooth speaker spills country music over the water. The smell of charcoal and lighter fluid claws at the back of my throat. You didn't answer the question, I say. He sighs and faces me again. The board approved this shoreline as community use 2 summers ago. It was on the agenda. If you wanted to object, you should have been at the meetings. I don't debate assumptions, I say. I debate deeds. He rolls his eyes just enough for me to see it. There's a complaint email on the website, he says. Send your concerns there, instead of crashing the party. Okay, we're trying to build community, not argue with a guy who disappeared for 10 years and suddenly wants to gate off the lake. A couple of people at the nearest table glance over at that. I feel heat rising in my neck, not from the grill. A guy who disappeared, I repeat. I've been paying taxes on this sand while you've been using it as your private event space. It's not private, he says. It's open to all dues-paying members. You're welcome to join in if you're current. The word dues lands like a little punch. Behind him, a volunteer tapes the edge of the HOA banner to one of my birch trees. For a second, I just stand there watching that plastic sign flap over the same spot I used to drag a lawn chair down to at sunrise. Then I hit stop on the recording. The phone gives a soft click as the file saves. Fine, I say. I'll email the board. Perfect, Carter says. We'll be happy to clarify the policy once you've read the covenants. He's already turning back to his grill. The path up to the cabin is steeper than I remember. My heart thumps harder than the bass as I climb, pushing through undergrowth that's tried to reclaim the edges of the trail. The cabin roof flashes through the trees, metal shingles catching late afternoon sun. The front door sticks like always, then gives with a wooden sigh. Dust motes spin in the slant of light across the old pine table. I flick the switch. Nothing. Power's still off. It doesn't matter. I know where I left it. Bottom drawer of the little metal filing cabinet by the bed. The handle is cold under my fingers. The drawer groans open. On top of a stack of manila folders sits a battered blue file marked in my own handwriting, 17B. I flip it open. There it is. County seal. My name. Legal description spelling out the arc of shoreline in feet and degrees. Stamped in block letters at the bottom in faded purple ink, filed 2007. The banner flaps in my mind again, white plastic over my sand. Unused shoreline defaults to community access, Carter said. I run my thumb over the word filed until the paper warms under my skin. We'll see about that. Halpern's place sits 2 lots back from the county road, a low ranch with peeling paint and a flag hanging off the porch that's seen better summers. His gravel driveway crunches under my tires the way it always has. I tuck the blue folder under my arm and climb out. The morning is too calm for what's pounding in my chest. He opens the door before I knock twice. "Warren," he says, blinking like he's not sure his memory is lining up with what he's seeing. Then his face breaks into a lopsided grin. "I'll be damned. You actually came back." I hold up the folder. "Yeah." And I return to find strangers partying on my beach. His eyes drop to the file. "That the deed filed 07, I say." He steps aside. "Bring it in." The house smells like old coffee and sawdust. His garage door is propped open to the side, letting in a rectangle of light across the concrete floor. We move toward his kingdom, a scarred tool bench buried under maps measuring tapes a level with dried mud on it and a half-empty mug that says county. Surveyors do it with precision. "Set it here," he says, clearing a space with his forearm. I lay the deed down and flip it open. The county seal catches the light. "This ring a bell?" I ask. He adjusts his glasses, leans in. His finger tracks down the legal description lips, moving just enough to show he's reading every degree and minute. "Lot 17B," he murmurs. "Commencing at the birch line, thence southwesterly along the natural shoreline." He taps the last line. "Full beach strip. All the way to that rock outcropping. That's Private Warren, always has been." Carter says unused shoreline defaults to community access, I say. Halpern snorts. Carter says a lot of things he never checks. Boundary stakes don't walk by themselves either, but somehow yours did. I look up sharply. "What do you mean?" He nods toward the back wall where a rolled-up plat map leans against the workbench. He grabs it, drags it across the table, and snaps 2 binder clips on the corners to hold it open. The map is yellowed around the edges. The ink faded, but still legible. County plat, year. You bought, he says. I was on the team that did this section. 17B had a cedar stake right on the contour painted white. Couldn't miss it. There's no stake now, I say. Banner tents, coolers, but no stake. He looks at me over the top of his glasses. Exactly. He drags a tape measure across the plat measures from the property line back to the shoreline, nodding to himself. Then he reaches for a red pencil and lightly traces the curve. Here, he says, your beach. The HOA common strip ends up here at the drainage inlet. They've got no business beyond that seam. The map never lies Warren. People do. Something loosens in my chest when he says it, a tiny notch in the tightness. I'm not crazy. I'm not misremembering. The paper backs me up. You're sure, I say. I staked it myself. He taps the map again, and nobody pulled that stake in front of me. A car door slams outside. We both turn toward the open side door of the garage. Tires crunch on gravel closer this time. A moment later, there's a quick rap on the frame. Mr. Halpern, the voice calls. You home. Halpern mutters, speak of the devil, under his breath. A man steps into view, early 30s, HOA polo clipboard in hand, the kind of haircut you get on a lunch break. He stops when he sees me. Oh, he says, didn't know you had company. Travis Halpern says, compliance officer. This is Warren. Lot 17B. Travis shifts his clipboard to his other hand. His smile looks practiced. Right, yeah. You're back, he says. Welcome. I just had a reminder to drop off for you, actually. He holds out a trifold notice. I don't take it yet. What kind of reminder, I ask. Just standard stuff we mail out, he says. Couple of guidelines. We've had, some confusion about people using the common beach versus private parcels. Confusion, I repeat, like HOA parties on my beach. He clears his throat. There's been community use behind Lot 17 for a while. Everyone treats it as the HOA party spot. We're just asking folks not to block access. Halpern's eyebrows climb. I slide my phone out of my pocket with my free hand. The screen wakes under my thumb. I open the voice recorder. A red circle blinks. Beep, the phone chirps softly as I tap record. The sound is small in the concrete room, but it feels loud enough to slice the air. Travis, I say, holding the phone where he can see it. Do me a favor and repeat that. His smile thins. Repeat what? What you just said. About everyone treating behind Lot 17 as the HOA party spot. He glances at Halpern, then back at me. Are you recording this? Yes, I say. He shifts from one foot to the other. Look, I'm just the compliance guy. I send reminders. I don't decide where folks throw parties. But you know where they've been throwing them, I say. He exhales through his nose. Behind your place, yeah. That strip's popular. It's nice. People like it. Because it's flat sheltered and nobody was around to say no, I say. I didn't say that, he answers quickly. You didn't have to, Halpern says quietly. Travis holds the notice out again, a little stiffer this time. This just outlines using the common beach instead. We're asking you not to interfere with community events while the board sorts out the map. The map's already sorted, I say. I lay my hand flat on the plat and the deed side by side. Filed here, drawn here. You can bring all the wristbands you like. It's still my sand. Color creeps up Travis's neck. Look, he says I'm just doing my job. If you've got an issue, you can bring it up at the review meeting. They're putting one on the schedule. Until then, don't tear down signs or confront volunteers. Okay, that just creates friction. Friction's already here, I say. You delivered it in a polo shirt. His confidence thins a little at that. He tucks the notice under a wrench on the bench instead of forcing it back into my hands. I'll tell the board. I spoke with you, he says. They'll be in touch. He backs toward the driveway, then turns and walks quickly to his car. When the engine noise fades, the garage feels too quiet. I stop the recording. The phone clicks and saves Travis's awkward confession somewhere I can pull it up later. Halpern leans on the bench looking at the deed, then at the map, then at me. You notice what he didn't deny he says. He didn't deny they've been using it as their party spot, I answer. And he didn't deny they think they can keep doing it, Halpern adds. We stand there for a long moment listening to the flag outside snap in the light breeze. Then he straightens. "Come on," he says, "let's go look at your line." We drive back in my truck, dust rising behind us. The path down to the water feels narrower now that I know who's been walking it. We push through the trees and step out onto the same beach I stood on yesterday. The banner is gone. Only a few trampled patches of grass and a forgotten plastic fork near the tree line say there was a crowd here at all. Here, Halpern says, heading toward the old cedar stump. This is where the stake used to be. He crouches, brushes his hand through the sand and dirt at the base. There's a round hole there 5 inches across the edges, still sharp. Empty. He looks up at me. "Warren," he says quietly, "your beach marker is missing." By late afternoon, the lake looks almost innocent again. The canopies are gone. The tables are gone. The laughter and music are just echoes in my head. What's left is a strip of damp sand, a couple of rope markers, and an overflowing HOA trash can with their logo slapped on the side like a badge. Halpern squints at the sky, then at the little handheld GPS unit in his palm. "Stand where the stake used to be," he says. "Best as you can remember." I walk to the cedar stump and plant my boots in the same patch of ground I've been staring at since yesterday. The old hole in the dirt is still there, half collapsed now from scuff marks. Here I say. He taps a button. The GPS chirps. He jots the coordinates in a notebook. "Now," he says, pointing to a rope marker staked near the waterline stand where they've drawn their new edge. I step toward the rope. It's strung between 2 skinny metal poles, sagging a little as if even the rope knows it's in the wrong place. The waves lap almost to my toes. "Here," I ask. He nods. "Right there." Another chirp, more scribbling. He holds both readings side by side and does some math in his head. 2 feet, he says. Give or take an inch, pushed straight toward the party zone. "So, I'm shrinking," I say. "Good to know." He doesn't smile. He looks past me, scanning the sand. The ropes mock the shoreline, he mutters mostly to himself. Wrong angle, wrong tie-in. A voice pipes up behind us. "You two measuring something fun, or just ruining the view?" We turn. Helena is standing at the top of the path, HOA lanyard still around her neck, a pair of sunglasses perched in her hair. She's one of the regulars I saw last night passing out plates. "We're measuring where my lot actually ends," I say. She walks down, sandals slapping. "Pretty sure Carter already did that. We've hosted several parties here. Nobody's complained until now." "I wasn't here to complain," I say. "That doesn't make it yours." She crosses her arms. "Does it really matter? It's just some sand. People finally started using this side of the lake. Maybe let it go. The HOA does a lot for this place." There's the phrase Halpern says under his breath. I tilt my head. "You think I should let it go because parties have been happening on my beach?" She shrugs. "You get to enjoy the improvements too. The rope lines, the trash pickup, the swimming area. Not everything has to be a fight." I pull my phone out. The camera opens with a soft click. "Hold that thought," I say. I walk past her toward the waterline, angling the lens so it captures the rope, the trash can with the HOA logo and the scar where the old stake used to be. I snap a few shots, then crouch down and run my hand along the damp ground near the stump. The sand here is darker heavy. My fingers hit something solid. "What's that?" Halpern asks. I dig, scooping out handfuls of wet sand until my fingers close around rough wood and splintered metal. I pull. A broken stake comes up out of the muck, wet and streaked with rust, one side of it sheared off. For a moment I just hold it, water running down my wrist, the weight of it heavier than it should be. "Lines don't move themselves," I say. Helena's mouth opens, then shuts. "That could be anything," she says. "Old dock post, whatever. No, Halpern says taking it from me and turning it in his hands. This was painted white once. Same gauge we used on the original boundary. Somebody didn't like where it stood." He looks down at the hole we dug it out of then, at the fresher divot nearer the rope line. "This was moved before last night's party," he says. "Deliberate. They didn't just toss this yesterday and hope you wouldn't notice. They've been living with this new line a while. Helena shifts her confidence, starting to fray. You're making a big deal out of a small thing, she says. The board had reasons. Then they can share those reasons under oath, I answer. Her chin lifts. You go legal with this, Warren, and you'll turn everyone against you. We finally have a community that uses the lake. Don't be the guy who shuts it down. I take one last picture of the broken stake in Halpern's hand, the rope behind him, the lake shining like nothing's wrong. Then I slip my phone back into my pocket. I'm not shutting down the lake, I say. I'm shutting down the idea that you can steal 2 feet at a time and call it community. She throws up her hands. Fine. Email the board. Follow the process. Just stop acting like we're criminals for throwing a few parties. She stomps back up the path, muttering. When she's gone, the beach feels bigger and emptier. We stand there a while, listening to the slosh of water against the rocks. That's enough for a pattern, Halpern says quietly. Shifting stakes built out use now pressure to let it slide. I nod, but the weight in my chest is back. For now, it's their word against mine, plus a wet stake and some GPS readings. On the way back to the cabin, my phone buzzes. Email received flashes across the screen. Subject line, Re-Behavior at HOA Event. I open it. The message is short. This is a reminder that obstructing HOA party preparations and confronting volunteers is against community guidelines. Please direct future concerns to the board via proper channels. I stare at the words until they blur. They move lines, take my shoreline, then accuse me of obstruction. Powerless isn't a strong enough word. I forward the email to myself to a backup account I haven't used in years, then flag it. If they want to turn this into a paper trail, I can do that. The subject line hits me first. Re-shoreline. Use. Internal only. The body is 3 short sentences forwarded from an address I don't recognize. We must assert community precedent before he files anything. If we keep using the beach, it strengthens our position. Do not stop events unless ordered by the board. Underneath the original header shows Carter's name and the HOA group list. Above it, a single line from whoever sent it to me. You didn't get this from me. Her email lands in my inbox like a door shutting and a window cracking open at the same time. I sit back in the old desk chair listening to the rain start up against the cabin roof. The only light is the lamp on my left throwing a yellow circle over the laptop, the blue deed folder, and a stack of binders I haven't touched in years. Enforcement manuals. State waterways regulations. Stuff I boxed up when I retired from the job I don't talk about much. The cursor on the screen blinks over my name in the tow field. My fingers hover above the keys, then drop. I forward the leak to a backup account, then to Halpern, and finally to a thumb drive with a quiet little click. A minute later, my phone buzzes. It's Halpern. You read it, I ask. Oh, I read it, he says. Paper rustles on his end. They're not even subtle. Assert community precedent before he files anything. That's not confusion, Warren. That's strategy. Precedent over a deed, I say. Hope the judge appreciates creativity. He snorts. Send me the full header when you get a chance. I want timestamps. I glance at the binders stacked on the side of the desk. The top one has a cracked spine and faded lettering. Inland Waterways Enforcement Field Guide. You busy tonight, I ask. Not if this is going where I think it's going, he says. You finally ready to stop just being mad and start being... Whatever you used to be, I look at the rain sliding down the window in crooked lines. They don't know who I used to be, I say. There's a pause, then a low chuckle. Then maybe it's time you reminded yourself first. After we hang up, I pull the field guide closer, flip it open. The smell of old paper and highlighter ink comes up like a memory. Section headings jump out: easements, riparian rights, unauthorized structures, private shoreline intrusion. I run a thumb over my old ID card tucked into the back pocket. The photo shows a younger man with more hair and less belly badge clipped to his shirt. State Waterways Enforcement Officer Warren Hale. Back then, I was the one telling people where they couldn't build a dock, where they couldn't dump fill, where their property line actually stopped. I'd written warnings. I'd signed off on citations. I'd watched judges side with maps and deeds more times than I could count. I left it behind when the job started to feel more like paperwork than water, but the rules didn't forget me. Outside, the rain picks up drumming on the metal roof. I listen to it, letting the sound steady me. Carter wants precedent. Wants to act like continued trespass, somehow rewrites a filing from 2007. Wants to treat my silence as consent. I scroll back to the leak. The line in the middle is the one that sticks. If we keep using the beach, it strengthens our position. Not if I pull that rug out from under them. I open a new email and address it to the HOA board and Carter directly. My fingers remember how to structure things so they read like they belong in a file. Carter, I type, then delete his first name and start again. Dear Mr. Carter, I lay it out clean. I remind him that Lot 17B's deeded shoreline is recorded with the county and has been untouched by any amendment or easement. I reference the plat. I reference the original stake location. I mention without fanfare my prior experience as a state waterways enforcement officer. Then I type the line that matters. Please provide the specific legal basis, statute, recorded easement, or court order you rely on to treat my privately deeded beach as common community shoreline. I stop, let my hands rest on the edge of the keyboard. Knowledge isn't power. Using it is. I add one more sentence. Until such basis is provided, any further HOA events on Lot 17B will be documented as unauthorized use of private property. I read the whole thing twice, making sure it's calm, not angry. Judges like calm. Then I hit send. The whoosh from the email client sounds small, but it feels like I've just thrown a stone into very still water. The cabin is quiet except for the rain and the soft hum of the old fridge. I close the manual, leave my ID on the desk next to the deed folder, where I can see both together. 10 minutes later, a new message flashes. Shoreline use. Formal review. I open it. Warren Carter has written. The board will hold a formal review of shoreline access and community use at the clubhouse this Thursday at 7 p.m. Attendance required if you wish your concerns to be considered. No legal basis, no statute, just a meeting. I lean back in the chair, watching the rain trace lines down the glass. They think this is just another homeowner complaint they can outlast with a long agenda and a polite smile. They still don't know who they're inviting into that room. I knew the meeting would draw a crowd, but I didn't expect to see cars jammed along the lane all the way to the main road. Headlights blinked through the dusk as more people squeezed in anywhere they could. Someone had propped the clubhouse doors open just to keep air moving through the bodies packed inside. A sheet of printer paper was taped to the entrance. Agenda Special Session 1. Review of HOA parties on Lot 17B. My lot number might as well have been in neon. People read it as they walked past me, then glanced at me like I'd brought bad weather with me. Inside, the heat hit immediately old carpet instant coffee and too many damp jackets. Folding chairs filled the hall from wall to wall, a few residents standing along the back. The projector hummed over a gold HOA emblem on the screen. The sound made the whole room feel like it was bracing for impact. Halpern sat halfway up the left aisle, notebook in hand, elbow on one knee. He caught my eye and gave a short nod toward the empty chair beside him. I slid in the metal frame, creaking under me. "Full house," he murmured. "Nothing draws a crowd like a property line," I whispered back. Up front, Carter stood surrounded by several board members. He had that same confident stance he wore at the party, shoulders relaxed, chin lifted slightly, the posture of a man who expected applause. But two of the board members leaned in close, whispering fast, and Carter's jaw tightened a little each time they finished a sentence. Not quite the united front he wanted. At 7 o'clock sharp, the board chair. Lindstrom, a man I used to see picking through his mailbox like every letter was bad news, stepped to the microphone. "Thank you, everyone, for being here," he said. "We have one agenda item tonight, community use of the shoreline adjacent to Lot 17B. Carter will begin with context for our long-standing practice." He sat, and all eyes shifted to Carter. Carter approached the table like he was stepping onto a stage. He nodded to a few familiar faces in the audience, then cleared his throat. As many of you know, he began the shoreline behind 17B has been used for community gatherings for years. That area was overgrown, unmaintained, and effectively abandoned. Through continued events, barbecues, holiday parties, summer kickoffs, it became our community gathering spot. In legal discussions, this is often called community precedent. He paused for effect, letting the phrase hang in the air. Dozens of families have enjoyed that shoreline, he continued. It's become essential to our sense of togetherness, and until recently, no objections were raised. None. People in the rows ahead nodded. A few murmured agreement. I could feel the narrative cementing around me like wet concrete. Then Lindstrom motioned. "Warren, the floor is yours." I stood, folder under my arm, and walked to the front. The projector's heat pressed against my back. My pulse thudded in my ears, but my hands were steady when I set the deed on the table. "I'm Warren Hale," I said. "Owner of Lot 17B since 2007. And the shoreline we're discussing tonight, your party spot, your gathering point, your community precedent, has always been private." I lifted the deed. The county seal caught the projector's light. "This is not abandoned land. It's not community property. It's mine." A murmur rippled through the room, sharper than before. "And this," I said, pulling a dirt-streaked wooden stake from my bag, "is what I dug out of the sand 20 feet from where your new rope line stands." Gasps rose across the front rows. The broken stake looked even more accusing under the projector's glow. Halpern stood before anyone could stop him. "I placed that marker myself when Warren bought," he said. "Last week we found it buried well away from its original location. It didn't fall. It didn't rot. It was moved." Carter forced a laugh. "Nobody on this board moved a stake. We followed long-standing use." "Long-standing trespass," I said. I pulled out my phone thumb, hovering over the screen. I'd like the room to hear something. A single beep echoed through the speakers as the audio clip began to play. Travis's voice filled the clubhouse. "Yes, HOA uses that beach for parties. Behind your place, yeah. That strip's popular." His nervous laugh crackled through the sound system. Someone in the back muttered, "Oh my God." When the clip ended, silence took the room hostage. Even the projector seemed quieter. "Precedent isn't ownership," I said. "You don't gain rights by taking what isn't yours and hoping the rightful owner stays quiet." Lindstrom rubbed his forehead, then looked slowly down the table at each board member. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured. "It's clear," he said, "that this cannot be resolved tonight. A formal review will be held Saturday at 10 a.m. All parties will present evidence deeds maps, recordings, photographs. Until then, no HOA events are to be held on or near Lot 17B. Carter looked like someone had kicked the legs out from under his confidence. His calm cracked just enough for everyone to see. I walked back to my chair as murmurs rose again. For the first time since this mess began, the pressure in my chest eased. Not victory, but finally, public momentum shifting my way. By Saturday morning, the clubhouse looked nothing like the place we'd stood in 2 days earlier. Someone had hauled out the folding tables and lined them in a neat row beneath the HOA seal. A red record light blinked from a small camera at the back, proof they wanted whatever happened today on file. Maybe they thought it would protect them, or maybe they believed they'd win. Carter walked in carrying a rolled map like it was a winning lottery ticket. The board straightened when they saw him trading confident nods as if the outcome had already been rehearsed. I watched the subtle relief spreading across their faces. He had brought something they thought would bury me. I took my seat without saying a word. Behind the board, leaning against the wall with his arms folded, stood Quinn. People shuffled to make room for him even though he hadn't said anything yet. He had that presence, quiet, patient, like someone waiting for a precise moment to drop a truth no one could outrun. The chair cleared his throat. "Let's begin. Carter, present your updated materials." Carter unrolled the map on the table, smoothing the corners with exaggerated care. This, he said, is the corrected shoreline survey. It clarifies that the area behind 17B was improperly marked years ago. While technically adjacent to private property, its actual usable portion meets criteria for community access. Murmurs rose. Confidence swelled across the front row. I waited until the noise settled. That map, I said, doesn't override a deed. I placed the filed deed in front of the board. The heavy paper lay flat, unbothered by theatrics. Carter smirked. Deeds can be interpreted. Shorelines shift. Quinn straightened slightly, still silent. I opened the folder. Shorelines shift. Legal boundaries don't. The board members traded looks again, their expression less sure now. One leaned forward to peer at the deed. Then Quinn stepped toward the table. "May I?" he asked. The chair nodded gratefully, like help had finally arrived. Quinn pointed to the map Carter had brought. "Where," he said, "is your county recorder stamp?" Carter blinked. It's an updated internal draft. That's not what I asked." Quinn didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The room tightened around him. "Where," he repeated, "is the official county stamp." Carter's mouth opened, then closed. His confidence thinned like fog burned off by sunlight. Quinn turned to the board. "You cannot use an unrecorded draft map to challenge a stamped filed deed. That is not how property law works in this state, and I suspect all of you already know that." The board members froze. Then Quinn glanced at me. "Would you like me to continue, or do you want to tell them yourself?" I shook my head. "Go ahead." Quinn folded his hands behind his back. "For years, the HOA has hosted parties on a private shoreline. Not ambiguous. Private. Worse, when the owner returned, instead of acknowledging the mistake, you attempted to establish precedent by continued use." Someone inhaled sharply, and Quinn added, "You challenged a man who enforced shoreline law for the state." The words hit the room like a dropped anchor. People turned toward me, some with surprise, others with the slow understanding of a puzzle snapping into place. Carter's stance sagged, his earlier confidence melting away. You should have disclosed that." "You never asked," I said. Quinn looked at the board. "You cannot win this. The deed is clear. The boundary tampering is documented. The audio confirms misuse. Authority without legality," he tapped the map, "is just noise." The board conferred in hushed tones for barely 10 seconds before Lindstrom faced the room. "We cannot support the HOA's claim," he said. "All use of the shoreline behind 17B is suspended effective immediately. Further actions will be taken after legal counsel reviews the record." A wave of murmurs rippled through the hall, shock, frustration, relief, all tangled together. Carter didn't move. His jaw clenched, his fingers tightening around the useless map. Then he looked up at me, eyes sharp with something between resentment and fear. "You returned at the worst time, Warren." I met his stare. "For you, maybe. But for the first time since I'd stepped onto my own beach, justice had finally begun to shift in my direction." The county envelope sits on my porch. When I open the door that morning, heavy stock paper blue seal pressed deep into the corner, the kind of mail that never arrives quietly. I pick it up, thumb running over the raised emblem, and carry it inside to the kitchen table where the deed has been living for weeks now, like an old friend waiting for backup. When I slit the envelope open, a single notarized page slides out. The language is plain official and merciless. Lot 17B is confirmed as privately owned shoreline. No easement dedication or community access right exists. Any prior HOA use of the beach area was unauthorized. At the bottom sits a notary stamp so sharp it could have been carved yesterday. Unauthorized. I whisper the word once, letting it settle into the room like a stone dropped in still water. Then I place the letter next to the deed. 2 documents finally speaking the same truth. My phone buzzes. "Halpern, you got the letter," I text back loud and clear. A second message. "Board wants to meet on the beach. 6 p.m. Bring boots." The rain tapers off an hour before 6. The clouds lift just enough to let a thin stripe of sunlight spill across the treetops. I take the familiar path down toward the lake, boots sinking slightly into the softened ground. When the shoreline comes into view, I stop walking. The rope barriers the HOA put up, the ones that mocked the line they tried to erase, are gone. The poles that once claimed my sand have been pulled up and stacked near the pines. Even the faded HOA trash bin has been rolled away from my property line, its absence making the beach look wider, cleaner, almost younger. For the first time since I returned home, the place feels like it's breathing again. A small group waits near the cedar stump. Halpern. 3. Board members, 2 volunteers, and a handful of neighbors standing far enough back to pretend they aren't watching everything closely. The board representative steps forward. His voice wavers at first, like he rehearsed this, but still doesn't quite believe he's saying it out loud. Mr. Hale, Warren, thank you for meeting us. He holds the county letter in his hand, already creased from being read too many times today. The board reviewed this as soon as it arrived. There's no dispute left. The beach behind Lot 17B is private. The HOA should never have used it for parties. Heads tilt. Someone murmurs, "Knew it." I nod slightly, letting him continue. "We want to apologize," he says, "formally, and fix what we can fix today." He gestures to a cardboard stake kit resting on the sand. Clean, white stakes. Fresh cord, a small mallet. The new Prop 3. Behind him, an older man from down the road folds his arms and says loud enough for everyone to hear. Finally, someone fought back. Others nod in agreement, their faces carrying that mix of admiration and embarrassment that comes when a neighbor does what everyone else wished they had. Halpern opens his clipboard. "We identified the historical stake point using your original coordinates and the county's overlay. That's where the new boundary marker goes." He hands me the white stake. The wood feels cool, solid, honest. I walk to the old indentation where the first stake once lived, the one someone deliberately pulled weeks ago. Rain has smoothed the depression, but the earth still dips faintly in a way only someone who knows the land would notice. I press the new stake into the ground. For a moment, I keep my hand on top of it, steadying it, letting the truth of this moment finally settle into place. Then I drive it down until the stake stands firm, pointing skyward like a small declaration. Halpern marks the coordinates, snaps a photo. The board rep does the same. A nearby volunteer lifts the last remaining HOA rope from the ground. Another folds the party banner they used so many summers on this sand, rolling it inward so the logo disappears first. They carry everything toward a pickup parked up the hill. Not tossed, not hurried. Just done. The board rep clears his throat again. "We're holding an acknowledgement ceremony this weekend. A public statement of correction." He hesitates, then adds, "We'd like you to speak." I raise an eyebrow. "You sure you want me with a microphone?" "We need you," he says. People listen when the one who was wronged tells the story, and frankly, it'll mean something coming from a man who didn't just yell online. You documented. You followed process. You were right. A few neighbors murmur approval. Someone claps once quietly. I look out at the lake still rippling with the gentle after-effects of the storm. The surface reflects streaks of silver and pale gold. The beach smells like wet sand and pine needles. I can almost remember playing here as a kid, skipping stones or dragging the old canoe down from the shed with Dad. I touch the new stake again. Solid. Correct. Visible. The line is back where it belonged. "I'll speak," I say. The board rep exhales in relief. "Thank you, Warren." People begin drifting away, their footsteps leaving temporary impressions in the wet sand. Halpern stays behind, giving me a quiet nod before heading up the hill. I remain a while longer. The beach is empty now except for the soft hiss of wind brushing across the water. The new stake stands bright against the darkened sand, exactly where the law and memory say it should be. Justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just a piece of wood returning to the right patch of earth. And in that small correction, something inside me shifts too. A beginning of healing, not the end. Just the beginning, and the morning of the ceremony, the lake is so still it looks like glass laid edge to edge. Mist hangs low over the water, drifting in thin bands that burn off where the first sunlight touches them. The air is cool enough to make my breath visible for a few seconds at a time. Somewhere out on the far shore, a loon calls. Once, then goes quiet, like even the wildlife understands that today belongs to something else. The clubhouse sits back from the shoreline, its porch already busy. People cluster in small groups, jackets zipped coffee cups in hand, voices low. On the bulletin board beside the door, a new laminated map is pinned in the top center. I walk straight to it. The lines are clean, updated, precise. At the bottom, in bold letters, the legend reads, Lot 17B, Private Beach. The property outline is shaded slightly darker than the common areas. Someone has underlined the label once in blue pen like they wanted to make sure nobody ever mistakes it again. Quinn stands a few feet away, hands in the pockets of his coat, watching the crowd rather than the map. "You finally got your ink," he says as I step up beside him. "Feels different seeing it on the wall," I answer. "Not just in a folder on my table." He nods. "That's the point. The law is one thing, but people need to see the correction in the same place they saw the mistake." Behind us, Halpern comes up the steps with a small cardboard box under his arm and a metal plaque in his hand. The plaque catches the light. Private Beach, Lot 17B. The letters are simple, no frills. "You ready to plant this?" he asks. After the speeches, I say. Apparently, I'm the headliner. He grins. About time. Inside chairs have been set up facing the big windows that overlook the lake. The board sits at a table in front, papers stacked neatly, pens aligned. A microphone stands off to one side. The red record light on the camera blinks again from the back of the room. The board representative from the beach meeting steps up to the mic. "Thank you all for coming out this morning," he says. "We're here to acknowledge and correct a mistake made by this association regarding the shoreline behind Lot 17B. He picks up a document, the county letter, and reads the key lines. Confirmed private. No easements. Prior HOA use unauthorized. Nobody gasps this time. They've seen it in emails and whispered conversations in their own copies, but hearing it spoken aloud into a microphone in the same room where they once voted on parties and rope markers that matters. He sets the letter down and looks at me. "Warren," he says, "would you come up?" I stand and walk to the front. For a second, I just look out the window over the tops of everyone's heads at the lake beyond. The mist is lifting now, breaking into pieces that drift over the water and then disappear. I turn back to the room. When I came back, I say, I thought I was just coming to check on an old cabin and a strip of sand I'd paid for 15 years ago. Instead, I found a tent city speakers banners and strangers partying on my beach like it had always been theirs. A few people shift in their chairs. I was angry, I continue, but anger doesn't fix lines. Paper does. Deeds do. Maps do. Deeds protect trust. They're not just about ownership. They're a promise that what was agreed on will still be true when you come back. Quinn nods once from his spot near the wall. The HOA overstepped, I say. They treated silence like consent. They treated absence like forfeiture. They turned forgotten into free for all. But a boundary doesn't stop being real just because you pretend not to see it. A boundary restored is a promise renewed. Someone in the back says amen just loud enough to draw a few smiles. One person with documents and a memory shouldn't have to fight this hard to be heard, I add. But if you ever wondered whether standing your ground politely, carefully, and legally still works well, you're sitting in the answer. There's a pause. Then an older woman near the aisle speaks loud and clear. Finally, someone fought back. Laughter breaks the tension. Applause follows, first scattered, then solid. The board rep steps back to the mic. "Warren," he says, "on behalf of the association, we're issuing this correction to our records." He slides a folder across the table. Inside is a signed resolution acknowledgement of mistake, recognition of the private beach instruction to remove all references to it as common property from HOA documents. Every board member's signature sits at the bottom, ink still drying. It's not an apology wrapped in flowers. It's better. It's enforceable. We move outside as a group down the path toward the water. The sun has climbed just high enough to lay a bright path across the surface of the lake. The new boundary stake stands where we left it last time, white against the dark sand. Halpern hands me the plaque and a small bag of hardware. "This one's yours too," he says. I crouch beside the stake, feeling the dampness of the sand through the knees of my jeans. I line up the plaque and fasten it in place, each turn of the screwdriver biting into the wood, each twist anchoring the words a little deeper. Private Beach. Lot 17B. When I stand up, the small crowd claps again. Not as loudly as inside. Softer, more real. The board rep extends a hand. "Thank you for not letting this slide. I didn't come back to watch lines fade," I say. "I came back to see if the place I bought was still here." He nods, then steps aside. People start to drift away back up the hill toward the clubhouse, toward cars and errands and the rest of their lives. Quinn and Halpern linger for a moment, then leave me alone with the stake, the plaque, and the quiet water. The lake is calm, now, the last of the mist gone. The surface reflects the sky so perfectly it's hard to see where one ends and the other begins. I stand there, hands in my pockets, listening to the small familiar lap of waves against my own strip of sand. I bought a forgotten lake lot once. I returned and found my beach turned into a party. Now, with the line restored and the sign catching the morning light, I let the final thought settle in my chest, solid and sure. I returned and reclaimed what was always mine.